Hi everyone, I am your host Shikha Singh, and you are listening to the Itch and Scratch Show, the self growth podcast, and your one stop shop to get inspired and motivated into itch that scratch. I know it's been a couple of months since we last met and since the last episode came out, but I have been traveling, and you would know that if you saw all the Instagram stories and the YouTube shots. But the cat's out of the bag now. I visited India twice this year. The first time was in April of 2024 and then in July 2024. So I thought, why not bring some fresh perspective and some new topic for the show? This one's going to be a little different from the previous episodes that we had. And that's only because it's very influenced from the last couple of trips to India. If you haven't been to India yet, to all my friends abroad, this is going to be a big surprise. And for all the NRIs, if you haven't visited India in the last 2 or 3 years, this is going to be an eye opener. All right, so let's get started. Welcome to the episode 8 of the Itch and Scratch Show. Today we dive deep into the stories and the trends shaping one of the world's most dynamic nations. Today you are going to learn about my experience visiting India this year. We're not just going to go about how I felt or what I saw, but we will also explore how the Indian economy has transformed in the last 5 years. Now, to give you some context, I moved to the United States to pursue my master's degree in management information systems in 2014. That was a decade ago. So, this episode is coming from someone who has seen India change, especially Hyderabad, in the last 3 years, because there has been a drastic difference in a lot of areas, not just the infrastructure, not just the mentality of people, not just the attitude, but a lot of different things. And so I wanted to make use of this platform to give you an honest perspective of how I felt being abroad for the last 10 years and now seeing this different side of India, which, or at least Hyderabad, which wasn't the case in 2014 or even up until COVID. So, um, let's go back to 2014. I wanted to pursue my master's degree, so I left Hyderabad in 2014 after my bachelor's degree and moved to Omaha, Nebraska. Now, I have visited India at least 5 to 6 times in the last 10 years. And this year, I visited India twice, 2 weeks in April, 2 weeks in July. And the rate at which the infrastructure has changed in India, especially Hyderabad, is insane. From high rise buildings to single floor mansions, from a variety of coffee shops to breweries, from the roadside bundis to bougie ass restaurants, and from pani puri to sushi. You name it, you got it. I know you're expecting that I'm going to say I was shocked, but I'm going to say I was fucking impressed. India now stands proudly as the fifth largest economy in the entire world, surpassing players like France and the UK. The World Bank actually reported that India's GDP hit approximately 7% in 2022, which is way more than the United States of America or China, around 3 to 4%. Now, everybody attributes this growth to whatever happened post COVID. And I myself have experienced that because I visited Hyderabad in 2021 and again in 2022. Things were still fine. There wasn't a huge change. But in the last couple of years, the landscape has completely transformed. The way in which the lifestyle has changed, the cost of living, and just the basic quality of life, there's been a drastic change in the last 2 years. This development has been post COVID in 2022. Yes, cricket and religion are still the prime factors that bind Indians even today. but there's a lot of development that's happened in the recent past. So, to satiate my curious mind, I started to dig deep. And needless to say, I read a lot of articles, watched a lot of documentaries, spoke to a lot of people who've been there and have seen the change themselves. So, as an outsider or as someone who has lived outside of Hyderabad or India for almost 10 years now, it was quite interesting to see this change that happened. I still remember when I was growing up or when I was going to college, the only places to hang out were, and I know most Hyderabadis can relate to this, or at least people who lived in Sikandrabad can relate to this. The only places that you could hang out were Coffee Cup, which was a cute little coffee shop in Sainikpuri. And then you had Extreme Sports Bar, and you had, I think it was Hot Cup Coffee or something like that in Trimugiri area, and then you had the Vax Bakery. I know we used to hang out at a bakery. Now you see the Hyderabad and places at which the young crowd hang out at. I have no words. No matter how much I try to explain, you have to see it yourself and you have to experience that culture shift yourself. I was not just impressed, I was actually happy for everyone who's earning in India and who have, according to the book, settled in India, because it's a ginormous change from wax to all these breweries. And you look at the menu and you have Thai food, Chinese food, Indo-Chinese, Vietnamese, all different types of cuisines. And not just food, though. Noticed a lot of changes in real estate. The prices have gone up. Cost of living, yes, has increased, but the overall mentality of people has also changed a lot. When I started doing my research, it all attributed to India post COVID. So let's set up the scene. It's 2022. India is navigating the aftermath of COVID. It's grappled by inflation and then there's supply chain disruptions. Media is focusing on India, and there was a dire need for economic revival. And now, fast forward to today, which is 2024, it's different. It's totally different. So, the three common reasons that a lot of economists came up with for this change and the GDP growth for India are following: digital revolution and tech boom, the demographic dividend, and my personal favorite, the global trade and investment. So we'll start with the digital revolution and tech boom. Companies like Geo, Paytm, and so many other startups that have made it super accessible for the common Indian man to use fintech and make easy transactions day to day is commendable. If I would have told my grandma 10 years ago that she would have to use her smartphone to pay money to a vegetable vendor at Raito Bazaar, I think she would just have gone crazy. I'm not sure how she would react though. But today, you go to anybody from cabs, autos, vegetable vendors, no matter who it is, making transactions has become so feasible. And it's only because of the encouragement and the rise of startups in cities. I want to point out cities like Hyderabad and Bengaluru. They have now been recognized as global tech hubs. And it's not a surprise. The minute you cross that bridge in Hyderabad, to me, at least for someone who's lived in Omaha, Nebraska, again, moved to a small town, the minute I cross that bridge in Hyderabad, it feels like I came to a huge city and downtown. That's what I tell my family. I'm like, this is Hyderabad's downtown because that's how it is. When I was working in 2014 or 2013, after I graduated from college, there weren't that many buildings or there weren't that many people who could afford high rise apartments or condos or single floor mansions. I am just shocked. When I went to a restaurant in these last 2 weeks that I spent in India, the minimum amount that we spent on food and drinks over a weekend, by the way, with at least four people, was equal to what I earned or what my monthly income was when I was working in 2014. It's just insane. I did travel in 2021 and in 2022. It wasn't like that at all. Everything's three digits and it's different. So, digital revolution, I think the amount at which things are now accessible to people in India on their smartphones has attributed to the fast growing tech markets in the world. This digital transformation and the tech boom has become one of the reasons why people are able to afford high rise condos and good houses in the middle of the city. Now, the second factor that everybody was talking about is the demographic dividend. We all know it's not a surprise that now India is the world's most populated country in the world. It has been projected to increase even more by 2027. But although there are a lot of pros and cons to it, the biggest asset that India has is its youth. The median age is 28. India has huge working age population and the labor force. This is what contributes to the economic dynamism. The podcast that I heard and other debates and discussions, there were a lot of people who still spoke about how the quality of education is still not at par in the villages or the rural areas of India, and how students in the third or fourth grade still cannot comprehend basic concepts when compared to the children in cities. So there's still some room for improvement to make sure that this working age population is skilled enough to contribute towards the economy. My most favorite is the global trade and investment. This factor is my favorite because everyone pointed out how India integrated itself in this global economy. And the initiatives taken by the government, or foreign direct investments, or strategic trade agreements with different countries, I think everything has contributed to this growth. There are a lot of global investors that prefer India as a key destination because of its large consumer market. Not just these three reasons, but there are a lot of other reasons that have contributed to India becoming the fifth largest economy in the world, and the rate that at which it is growing. But these three just stood out to me and were the most common factors, no matter what article I read. So, note to all my friends who live abroad, gone are the days when people would picture the slums of Mumbai, or you would picture Slumdog Millionaire whenever someone spoke about India. It is no longer that country that you saw in that movie. Yes, there are still a lot of areas to improve. I think it's a public service announcement. Not everything relating to India should start with the scene of malnourished children with loosely clad clothes on the streets of Mumbai. My personal take after my experience visiting Goa and Hyderabad, and after speaking with so many people, and in fact seeing everything that's changed in the last couple of years, to be honest, is that people who've been living in India are way more rated than the Indians who have been living abroad for quite some time. At least in the last 10 years, I feel that Indians who are living abroad, and please don't get me wrong, some of them are still stuck in the era during which they left India. Maybe brain drain was a good thing for India. Maybe all these reforms were a good thing in India. Now, I'm not saying that India is a developed country. No, there's still a long way to go. But I feel like all NRIs definitely have to visit India and have to see it for themselves, especially cities like Hyderabad. Now, while there's always two sides to the coin, I will say that no country is perfect, just like no person is. There's always going to be reforms, there's always going to be areas that one can improve in, policies, and a lot of debate around how things should be handled, what should be changed. But I feel India's proven a point and it's no longer what it used to be, at least when I was growing up. So just like how my idea of India has changed in these last two visits in 2024, I hope you get to see this India too. And I hope you get to feel this modern India that has been ranked fifth in the world's GDP rankings in 2024. I hope you learned something. I hope I kind of influenced you to go visit India, or at least the cities, the major cities. And thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you to all the 1,800 subscribers on YouTube. Yay. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you so much for spending 20 minutes of your precious time to hear me talk about my experience. And I hope you can relate to some of it too. Another update from my end is that I have a lot of interviews scheduled in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for more episodes and more source of inspiration and motivation. And don't forget to stay raw and to stay you. Take care. This is your host, Shikha Singh, signing off. Bye bye.